Hello, my 4 subscribers. That's right, we've gained one more. This is Emerald Green Eye here, coming to you again with another alternate history election prediction video. And this is 1992, if Ross Perot never ran. Now, many would argue that Ross Perot stole a bunch of votes from President George H.W. Bush, thus limiting him to one term and allowing Bill Clinton to win. In this prediction, I'm going to be analyzing some of that, and if Ross Perot had never ran, then could George H.W. Bush win election? I probably butchered that all. I'm sorry. It's very early where I am. All right. So first off, Clinton would win Oregon and Washington. These states were won by Michael Dukakis in 1988, and were trending very Democratic at the time. Um, they're still safe Democrat today, so I'm going to give him those states. I'm also giving him Hawaii, which would also become safe Democrat this time. I'm going to give President Bush Alaska, which would go to him heavier than it did in our timeline. I'm going to come back to California. I'm going to give George Bush Montana, since Montana almost went for Ross Perot, but that vote did end up splitting and go to Clinton. I'm going to give him Mountain West, Utah. That would be a landslide. The Dakotas, oops, the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, all states that went for President Bush. Arizona was much more Republican at this time. That would go for President Bush, especially with his moderate stances on immigration. And I think Nevada would also go for him. That was also a much more Republican state. It also came out heavily for Ross Perot. However, I'm going to give Minnesota to Bill Clinton. Hasn't gone Republican since 1972. I think Bill Clinton also had that appeal to farmers and definitely got that Des Moines vote in Iowa, so I'm giving that to him. Arkansas would go to Bill Clinton by a landslide. That was his home state, and this was a time where the South was still relatively Democratic. I'm going to come back to Louisiana, Missouri. I'm going to give Bill Clinton Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, just because this area of the Rust Belt was very mad at President Bush for breaking his campaign promises of not raising taxes. I will, however, give Bush Indiana. Um, Bill Clinton, he did have the Southern appeal. He was the last Democrat to win the South, unless you want to count Barack Obama winning Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida. But yeah, that and Bill Clinton had a running mate, Al Gore from Tennessee, so I think he'd still hold on to Tennessee. However, I think Mississippi and Alabama would go for President Bush. President Bush would also carry Florida. He'd carry the Carolinas and Virginia, which are all very much more Republican than they are now. I'm sorry, I've had a sore throat this week. West Virginia was safe Democrat at this time. Would go for Bill Clinton. D.C. has been safe Democrat since it was founded. Maryland would go for Bill Clinton. Again, he has that Southern appeal, and it was also very mad at President Bush. Massachusetts, very Democrat as well. Vermont, it, Vermont has actually voted Republican more times than any state in the whole country, but in 1992 it was trending very Democratic. It was really close in 1998, so I'm going to give that to Bill Clinton. I'm also going to say he wins New York, Rhode Island, and I think he would win all of Maine. Even actually, no, I'm going to come back to Maine. So this is what our map looks like right now. I'm going to go through the remaining states. I think Clinton would win California because California was trending more Democrat at the time. However, I think that George Bush would win Colorado and New Mexico. Colorado was more rural at this time, had a very strong GOP base, and President Bush was very moderate on immigration, which is why he would carry New Mexico. Clinton, with that Southern Democrat appeal, would win Louisiana. He won it quite easily in our timeline. Um, yeah, he'd win Louisiana. However, George Bush would win Georgia. And I'm saying George Bush would win Georgia just because of the Bush's appeal to this area of the South, what's known as the quote unquote Cotton Belt or the Bible Belt. he'd win Georgia, and Ohio, even without Ross Perot, was very close in our timeline, so I'm going to give that to President Bush too. And what you have to remember about 1992 was it was a realigning election. It was when the states started to become more polarized in the electoral college like they are now. So I'm going to give Bill Clinton Delaware, and I'm going to give him Pennsylvania. And that puts him very close, so this would probably be a very, very close election. I'm going to give, let's see, I think I'm going to give President Bush New Hampshire. I'm giving him New Hampshire just because the Bush family is from ancestrally Connecticut and Massachusetts, and so that's why I think George Bush would also win one electoral vote in Maine, but Bill Clinton would carry the rest. I'm just going to amend that real quick. Hold on. Yes, that's 3 votes for Clinton, 1 vote for Bush, because this was the year that Maine split its electoral college votes. That puts Clinton at 269, Bush at 227. I think Bush would carry New Jersey, because if you look in our timeline, that was very close, even with Ross Perot, and this whole area was pretty Republican at the time. I don't think you would vote for Clinton. However, I think that Clinton could win Missouri. That would push him over the top. And I think Clinton would win this election simply because this was a realigning year. Bush had broken several of his campaign promises, gotten us into a war that people weren't happy with. So Clinton would also win Kentucky. That was a swing state at the time. And then he'd win Connecticut. So the final electoral total is Clinton 296, Bush 242. Be a lot closer than it was in our timeline, but ultimately with the states realigning, with it being a realigning year in the electoral college, then Clinton would win. Bush was just wrong place, wrong time. So yeah, this is my final tally. Clinton 296, Bush 242. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.